Tonight, farewell Olivia. Her heartbroken daughter leads the star-studded tributes as Melbourne celebrates a wonderful life. Jetstar nightmare, Melbourne-bound passengers stranded for hours on the tarmac at Alice Springs. Homicide detectives quiz a man over a death at an Endeavour Hills halfway house. Victorian households offered another $250 to help ease the burden of soaring power bills. First on 9, police deliver a crushing blow to Melbourne's Hoons. And Paddy the top cat, the boy from Moggs Creek, becomes Geelong's new skipper.
This is Melbourne's 9 News with Alicia Loxley.
Good evening. That smile, that voice, they will be the enduring memories of Olivia Newton-John, who was today farewelled by the city that held her so dear. Among the sombre and tearful tributes from Olivia's closest family and friends was music, stories and gratitude for her work in cancer research. Mark Burrows begins our coverage.
Olivia's last performance, a sellout from adoring fans.
I'm feeling a bit apprehensive and I haven't brought any tissues because I know I'm just going to cry.
To the scientists who ran her Melbourne Cancer Centre.
We need to work on it, and that really means we need to do a lot of research, and I think Olivia was a beautiful champion of really conveying that message.
Delta was in tears even before the show.
I think it's really important today, the healing for everybody, for the whole country and of course around the world. 2,500
inside and carried live to hundreds of thousands around the country.
We are here to celebrate an incredible life, a remarkable life.
A little-known song from Olivia's heart, grace and gratitude, how she lived her life.
I thank you.
And from primary school kids at Olivia's old school. From her husband John Easterling, who knew he had found his soulmate when he first heard her sing.
I asked her to be my girl. It's pretty corny, but I actually said those words.
And he spoke about the Olivia few knew.
Every day with Olivia was supernatural. Every day with Olivia was a bit of magic.
And the magic most of us knew was, of course, celebrated. A career of 6 decades, 4 Grammy Awards, 100 million records worldwide, and the movie that made her, Grease. Flying in from the States, Olivia's daughter, Chloe.
I feel like a little girl lost without her mother. She was my safe space, my guide, my biggest fan, and the earth beneath my feet.
Her fans felt connected to Olivia, but no one was more connected than Chloe.
I love how she loved, fully and completely.
Olivia's niece, Toddy Goldsmith, recounting a road trip with Auntie Liv from LA to Vegas.
We once got lost driving in a straight line from LA to Vegas. And actually, we were pulled over by the police on that trip when she was at the wheel, and guess who didn't cop a speeding fine?
Olivia's legacy in Melbourne, the Olivia Newton-John Cancer Institute and Wellness Centre.
I'm sure you can imagine the feeling Olivia left patients with, not because she's a superstar, but because of the understanding that comes from a shared human experience. Olivia was a healer.
And from those who couldn't be there in person.
I grew up with her, listening to her. I would perform her songs at school. I remember when I first saw Grease, I was like, oh, I want to be Olivia Newton-John.
I have to salute her deliberate intention to keep going no matter what.
She was fun, she was beautiful, she was kind. Those kind of people don't come along very often.
Richard Wilkins spoke on behalf of the entertainment industry.
Olivia will not only be remembered for the wonderful music, the fabulous films and all those awards, the record sales, the chart positions and the box office receipts, but for the love and light she brought into the world and received in return.
A full life, selfless, brilliantly lived. Mark Burrows, 9 News.
And Stephanie Anderson joins me now live from Hamer Hall. Steph, the service is now wrapped up.
It has, Alicia, and those 2,300 people who were able to take it in person inside Hamer Hall are slowly making their way out and back along this orange carpet. Everyone I've spoken to has said what an incredible sense of celebration there was in the room, and it certainly came through in the broadcast as well. All those facets of her life that had to be captured, the Cancer and Wellness Centre, the showbiz, her friends, her family and her fans. There is certainly a feeling here that it's been a very fitting farewell for the amazing Olivia Newton-John this afternoon, Olivia. Alicia.
Yes, it was. OK, Steph, thank you. Well, more than 100 furious Jetstar passengers have been stuck on an aircraft for more than 14 hours. As Elizabeth Moss reports, their flight to Melbourne from Bangkok struck trouble after it had to divert to Alice Springs.
This is what 14 hours in a Boeing 787 looks and sounds like. Babies, parents, among more than 200 passengers grounded and stuck on board at Alice Springs.
The mood on the plane is very unhappy. Even if it was just a walk on the tarmac, people just want to get some fresh air. We've been sitting on this plane with the flight time included now for close to 14 hours.
Flight JQ30 left Bangkok at 9:30 p.m. local time. Midway through, it was diverted to Alice Springs because of a serious medical emergency. Then an electrical fault was detected, meaning a second plane was needed. As Alice Springs isn't an international airport, travellers were kept on the first plane for more than 7 hours.
They've had to turn all of the entertainment off in the plane to keep the plane cool. They provided us with water, tea, coffee, and then about 2-3 hours after that, they provided us with some sandwiches.
Then finally, this.
We will be disembarking the aircraft. This won't be happening straight away, but within the next, I'd say, 15 to 20 minutes.
Only after passengers contacted the media. They were given the choice to leave to this room. Jetstar telling passengers, "We appreciate this has been a lengthy and frustrating delay and the experience has been very uncomfortable for customers. We thank them for their patience and understanding." Tonight, many of those passengers wanting a refund and all still waiting to get home.
I have had poor experiences with them in the past, but this is just a different kettle of fish.
Now, Alicia, the good news for those passengers is that their second plane, the replacement, is due to touch down in Alice Springs within the next half an hour. Then they can finally begin the rest of their journey back to Melbourne. As for their bags, they will be arriving on that first plane tomorrow. And we are told that, put simply, that is because they do not have the equipment at Alice Springs Airport to transfer those bags from one plane to the other. Jetstar has reiterated their top priority was getting that passenger urgent medical attention, then getting the rest of the customers on their way as quickly and safely as possible. For those passengers no doubt wanting a refund given what they've been through, Jetstar says it'll work with them on a case-by-case basis.
What a nightmare. OK, Elizabeth Moss, thank you. Well, a man's body has been found at a halfway house at Endeavour Hills in Melbourne's southeast. Mimi Becker is following the story. Mimi, a suspect has been arrested.
He has, Alicia, and that 38-year-old man was taken away for questioning by homicide detectives wearing a forensic jumpsuit. His clothes also seized as possible evidence. It comes after a man was found with suspected head injuries around 9:30 this morning inside that boarding house. He is yet to be formally identified, but it's believed both men were residents at the crisis accommodation. Usually around 30 men live in the facility, and speaking to some of them today, they told us they try to keep them to themselves as much as possible, while neighbours say police are often called to the residents.
Last night about 10:30 there was a lot of language and swearing and someone screaming and whatnot, just for about 5 minutes.
I've got a fence with them. Sometimes I'm scared because they're quite loud and sometimes they're arguing and, screaming and yelling.
The 38-year-old man in custody is currently assisting police with their inquiries, Alicia, and it is expected that charges will be laid.
OK, Mimi, thank you. A manhunt is underway tonight for a hit-run driver who struck a mother and left her for dead in Donvale. Relatives of the woman say she has life-changing injuries after she was hit while making an Uber Eats delivery. Crime reporter Lana Murphy.
Dazed and bleeding, but amazingly alive. A woman is treated by paramedics minutes after being crushed between two cars and flung onto the road.
It's not angry, but it's very sad.
50-year-old Chun Lin Lan was left with a cracked skull after she was struck by a heartless driver in Donvale last night. The Box Hill mother was about to make an Uber Eats delivery at 10 p.m, but as she stood beside her hatchback, a red Mazda sped past. She was pinned, then thrown to the road, and unbelievably, the CX-5 kept going.
To leave a person on the ground for dead and not render assistance is despicable, and I don't believe any fair-minded member of the community can condone that sort of behaviour.
We hear this loud bang, like two cars colliding. We see a lady come out like holding her head and she's like covered in blood.
Korosh Nikzad called 000 as the woman stumbled back to her vehicle on Tunstall Road.
All I saw was the woman in her car and the officers just attending to her. She seemed conscious.
She was taken to the Alfred Hospital, where she's now in a stable condition.
Just pain forehead. And here.
Police say the red Mazda lost its left side mirror and a brake light during the impact. It was last seen driving south towards Coonong Creek, but its movements from there remain a mystery.
There is no way that this driver would not have known that there was a collision. This could have been a fatality. I think it's high time that this driver rights some wrongs and hands him or herself in.
Lana Murphy, 9 News.
Households feeling the hip pocket pain of rising energy bills can access another round of the state government's power saving bonus. The one-off payment rewarding people who search for better deals online will be available from March. Shubha Krishnan reports.
Like millions of Victorians, Sadie Diab is feeling the pinch.
I'm just worried to turn anything on because the bill will be so high, I can't afford to look at it.
Today, through her local community centre, she's learning how she can get some much-needed power bill relief, registering on the government's Energy Compare website to receive her one-off $250 power-saving bonus.
This is us doing what we said we would do. We said there'd be a fourth round and we've wasted no time standing that up.
From March 24, every Victorian is eligible for the payment, no matter if you've received them before. So far, it's been hugely popular, with 1.7 million households pocketing the bonus since July.
That is a quite amazing number of households that have responded to the very practical and direct cost of living support that we have provided.
But it hasn't come cheap. The scheme has cost taxpayers $425 million. The election promise of another round is costed at $400 million more.
This is all costed out, it'll be delivered, and it's really practical support.
That support in high demand. As the new scheme opens, the other will soon end. And for those Victorians that still haven't cashed in their third power-saving bonus, you have just under a month to do so before the scheme closes. Shubha Krishnan, 9 News.
An Australian-based professor has been released in Papua New Guinea more than a week after he was kidnapped, along with his colleagues in the Highlands.
Bryce is a highly regarded archaeologist and a valued colleague at the University of Southern Queensland and also in the wider archaeological community.
Bryce Barker lives in Australia but is a New Zealand citizen and had been doing field work when he was taken by a criminal gang demanding ransom. Anthony Albanese has made history, becoming the first sitting Australian Prime Minister to march in Sydney's Mardi Gras parade.
It's about respect for everyone, no matter who they are and who they love.
He wasn't the only politician who made an appearance. Senator Lydia Thorpe halted the event when she laid down in front of the police float as an act of protest against law enforcement. Her actions have drawn widespread criticism, with many labelling it a cheap self-publicity stunt. Well, a standoff over the federal government's climate plan is intensifying, with the Greens refusing to back the policy in its current form. With only 3 weeks of Parliament until the May budget, Labor is under pressure to get the minor party on side. More from Fiona Willan.
Two Labor leaders on the campaign trail, one facing an election battle in New South Wales, the other preparing for a fight in Canberra as a clash over a climate plan heats up.
You can't put the fire out while you're pouring petrol on it.
The government wants to introduce new rules to force major polluters to limit their emissions.
This is the biggest chance the Parliament has had in more than a decade
to actually get a sensible framework to reduce emissions from all our big emitters.
And with the Coalition refusing to back the reforms, Labor will need the support of the Greens and 2 crossbenchers to get them through the Senate. But the minor party has issued a condition calling for a ban on new fossil fuel projects in exchange for its support.
That's not part of our agenda and it won't be part of those negotiations.
The Energy Minister says coal and gas will need to be part of the energy mix as Australia transitions to renewables.
The Greens need to decide. Are they a party of protest or a party of progress?
This is a test for Labor. Do they want to lift pollution from coal and gas, or do they want to cut it?
This is a key part of Labor's pledge to reduce emissions by 43% by 2030 and reach net zero by 2050. And right now, it's hanging in the balance. The Coalition taking aim at a different vow.
Labor promised that they weren't going to change the goalposts on super.
As the government considers slashing tax breaks on super accounts with balances in the millions. The Treasurer leaving the door open to capping how much you can have in your fund.
Clearly that's one of the ideas that's been put to us. I think any responsible government considers those kinds of suggestions in good faith.
The super debate now supercharged. Fiona Willan, 9 News.
Imitation was the sincerest form of flattery at Marvel Stadium last night when Harry Styles belted out Daryl Braithwaite's biggest hit. The man himself was in the audience for a sing-along of Horses. Later on Facebook, Daryl said he was overwhelmed by the tribute, you can see why, and thanked the pop star for his performance. Well, Geelong's new skipper is getting straight to work as the Cats look to go back-to-back. Clint Sanaway joins me now with more. Clint, what's Danger had to say?
Good evening, Alicia. Thanks for that. He's promised to be a very different type of leader, but the mission remains pretty much the same. It's fair to say winning a flag gave him a good feeling.
Having tasted the ultimate success, it does become addictive.
Why the numbers game has turned out famously for a new hawk. Our women's cricketers ready to climb another big mountain. An almighty game of tug-of-war at the top of the English Premier League. And forget about shot of the day. This might just be shot of the year. Plus, how our test stars have rallied around Pat Cummins. That's all coming up shortly in Sport, Alicia.
Look forward to that, Clint. We'll see you very soon. Well, coming up next for you, Melbourne's 9 News, our city's pokies pain, the suburbs losing more than $100 million in just 6 months. Australia's new line of defence as tensions grow in the Indo-Pacific. And from pride and joy to this, the end of the road for Melbourne's Hoons.